Hello, we are coming to you live from the World Economic Forum in Davos. One of the key central topics here has always been about gender inequality. Now, 2 years ago, the proportion of women here was 16%. It increased to 17%, is now 18%. But that's still low, and especially in the corporate workforce, where only 5% of the Fortune 500 CEOs are women. Joining me is one of India's most powerful women, actually globally as well. No introduction, but Chanda Kochar, tell me what bothers you about this gender inequality. You are one of the very few women that I see here.
Well, I think, one way to look at it is that every year the proportion of women participation is going up. So that's good news. But I think we have to recognize that world over, women have started playing a role in the corporate world only in the last decade or so. So it takes time for women to move from those entry levels to the higher management level. And I'm very hopeful that as corporates now are getting more and more conscious about gender equality, you see a larger proportion of women at the entry stage and at the middle level stage, and gradually this proportion would improve at the top as well.
And how do you feel India compares with the global women here?
Well, I think actually I'm not talking about the representation here, but in general I think India is doing very well on the corporate side as far as women representation is concerned. And I would think that the banking sector in India in fact just stands out, because there's nowhere in the world that you have such a high proportion of banking assets being led by women CEOs.
Okay, I know you're busy, but a quick question, is India looking better than the rest of the world right now, or looking pretty weak?
No, I think when you look at the rest of the world is in a very volatile and uncertain situation. I think that volatility is going to continue, and compared to the rest of the world, India's macroeconomic indicators are actually looking much better.
All right, I'll let you go, but thank you so much. As we've been talking about, gender inequality is a key subject here. You have the likes of Facebook's Sheryl Sandberg, HP's Meg Whitman, IMF's Christine Lagarde, obviously some of the powerful speakers here who gain a lot of attention, but they're using this platform to bring more focus to this. Another big topic, which has been a key theme all on day one here at World Economic Forum, has been the fourth industrial revolution, and whether technology in the future will help us do our work better or will take away millions of jobs. For India, which has a vast inequality right now, with 1% of our population controlling over 50% of our wealth, this indeed is a big problem. So that's a perspective we'll keep getting here from Davos, but for now, move attention to the economic landscape. The markets haven't been looking good, with emerging markets' share of global growth falling dramatically. And you also have oil prices, which have been a key concern, now at 12-year lows and under $28 per barrel. What does this mean for the future of industry in India? We've got Dev Sanyal speaking.
When you have a shock which is caused by an excess amount of supply, demand is not the antidote. Okay. It is a factor, but effectively production actually has to be shuttered in, supply has to sort of dampen for the narrative to change. So that's, I think, one of the key factors as one thinks about this shock versus, say, in 2008, or indeed in the previous decade, at the end of the 1990s or the beginning of the 1990s, where you had shocks led by effectively a dampening of demand, which then got stimulated because of all the actions taken by governments and the like. Where in this particular scenario, demand is a factor, but the fact of the matter
supply
is
has to
actually be dampened. Right. And of course, as you think about the environment in the second half, you can think about the fundamentals with demand and supply, because the growth in demand and the supply easing off, subject to what, of course, OPEC and other factors there are out there, including geopolitics. Right. But then you've also got the dampening effect of the inventory levels, which are actually at sort of very high levels, as I said, in the OECD, but also generally.
The chief of one of the most powerful wireless companies in the world, Hans Westberg of Ericsson, says that a dramatic increase in mobile access is going to happen in the next 10 years. 90% of the world's population will have access to mobile as early as 2021. And he says that with every $10 drop in handset price, there will be access to 100 million more people. Hans Westberg also saying that he's partnered with Prime Minister Modi's government on their Smart Cities initiative, and this is something that he is going to be a continuous believer in. And I know you met with Prime Minister Modi as well. So can you tell me exactly about smart cities and how Ericsson will play a role in that? Because many are saying now, because of the problems in land reforms, we can't start a totally greenfield project. So we'll be converting existing cities with technology. How will this work?
You're absolutely right. And yes, I met Prime Minister Modi for just a while ago, and we discussed which areas are the most important to start in a smart city. There are a couple of ones. I think one is, of course, the whole idea to do social sort of impact, everything from digital education and digital healthcare. That's important. But after that, we talk a lot about smart grids, doing the utilities being much smarter so you don't have waste of electricity. And the other thing very important for a city is the transport system. The transport system has to use a much more of technology in order to be much more smart traffic management and all of that. And ultimately, the public safety has to use technology.
How much would you be willing to invest in the project?
No, I think that we think this is the only way to make a sustainable world and make it so. We are investing in India both in resources. We have grown from some 3,000 employees in India some 5-6 years ago. We are over 25,000 right now, and we are investing in a second factory. So for us, this is a very, very important market, and we really want to be part of contributing in making a much more sustainable India and a growing economy in India.
We continue to get you the Davos flavor. We are right in the center of Congress Center where all the action is taking place. But one of the big themes has been this huge crash in global markets and sentiment over the last several weeks. People are now saying, is the emerging market story dying down? Japan itself has been a key problem as the market's correcting, the Nikkei correcting by over 20%, which means it's in a bear market. With me is one of the largest real estate players in Japan, Mr. Mori. Tell me about how serious this is looking, because people are saying we could be headed to another recession.
Yes, at this moment, from 2 years ago, last 2 years, Tokyo market is expanding, and of course, stock market is price is increasing, rising by over liquidity. I want to say it's over liquidity. It means the governmental strategy. It's good. It was very good impact for the market, and yen was depreciated, and so our export from Japan, some export is increasing. But key is real growth scenario. So it takes more time. So last 2 years, this governmental strategy was successful, but still ongoing.
But do you feel that there will be a recession now in this year? Global sentiment is looking weak. Global growth is down. China is a big problem. Oil is a big problem. Will we have a recession in 2016?
Yeah, I think this year's first half part will be globally we are facing to the recession stage.
Okay,
and its impact to Japan is, as you know, it's very big.
Right. All right, Mr. Mori, thank you so much for that sentiment. So saying, yes, we are headed towards recession in this 2016. Things have been looking difficult over the last couple of weeks, especially since December and China's crash. That's really been the trigger, and global markets obviously taking that cue from it. We have been focusing on oil for a while right now, the fact that oil prices are at 12-year lows, and India's power ministry announced a new power policy as well. The big push then is to go away from the dependence in oil to renewable energy, which is not even good in terms of prices, but obviously for climate change and low emissions. Here's a quick excerpt of Tulsi Tanti and his daughter talking about their business's increased focus.
Mr. Tanti, what's happening really in terms of renewable energy? I think
the renewable energy space, particularly in India and globally, it's really booming very well and going. Like 2015 is almost globally 30% growth, and India is a 40% growth. So it's a positions in the renewable market is growing. After the COP21, I think most of the nations, particularly in emerging economy markets, everybody has set the very ambitious target for the renewable. And our Prime Minister has also set the target for our country to reduce 33% carbon by 2030 and 40% renewables in our energy mix. But same time also it's a good target of the volumes, 175 gigawatt to be installed by 2022. Today our installed base is just 35 gigawatts. So it's a big ambitious target, and that is giving a great opportunity company like Suzlon to drive the business in the Indian market.
Okay, we're slipping into a short break right now, but plenty more coming in live from the World Economic Forum at Davos. Even with the global markets focus, our world has never been so uncertain when it comes to geopolitical tensions. The mass exodus of refugees, the worst since World War II, as well as the problems which are taking place between Saudi Arabia and Iran, keeping the world as hostage. I've got with me a special authority on the subject. Professor Iravani has spoken on 4 panels here in Davos. What can be done? This entire rising tension between Saudi Arabia and Iran is really having huge repercussions on the world.
Yes, that's very unfortunate, and I'm also not happy to see this kind of tension going on. There has been some steps these days taken by different leaders, including the leader of President of Pakistan or Prime Minister of Pakistan and China and others, try to mediate between Iran and Saudi Arabia. But I think leaders of both sides are the best people. They can come and talk to each other. They are 2 Muslim countries, and they should try to solve their problem. They don't need any kind of mediators. And I'm sure if they come together and talk to each other, then they can overcome difficulties and problems they have gone through during last few years.
But do you think they'll talk? Because right now it doesn't seem that's anywhere close to happening.
I hope. At least I have seen that kind of desire expressed from Iranian side a few times during the last few months. So I want to take this opportunity to encourage my dear brothers, leaders in Saudi Arabia we are brothers, and let's talk to each other. Let's look at the issues in a positive way and try to be united. The unity between Iran and the Saudi can bring stability and peace in the region.
Right, dialogue for peace. Thank you, Professor Ramani, and good luck spreading that message. But that's been a key concern here in Davos. The other theme that we have been continuously focusing on is the emerging markets. Have they lost their sheen? In fact, many are saying I is the only one standing in the BRICS. Is that true? We speak to one of Russia's biggest transport players who says yes, emerging markets are going through tough times. Rate cuts and stimulus will need to help, but oil prices are likely to go up to $40 to $50 per barrel, which he says will actually help cushion the fall. I've got with me someone from one of the biggest transportation industries in Russia, Sigrid Wolf. Good to have you on NDTV. You know, here in Davos, a big theme has been how the emerging market model is breaking down. BRICS is no longer the story it was. What would you say to that?
In principle, if you see the facts and the numbers, you are absolutely right. It's indeed a big suffering of all those BRIC markets. But I think mobilization should be a clear program for the governments because people transportation, infrastructure projects are the key. And based on this situation, what we see, all the markets are down, people losing their jobs, I think this could be a very good stimulator to help. And it's not a question of one country, it's a question of all BRIC countries.
You don't think commodity prices are particularly hurting countries like Russia and Brazil? Because that's obviously got a lot of dependence on them.
Yeah, dependence on one hand, but advantage on the other hand. That means it's first time that you really have as well access locally to normal prices. What I learned over the last years, that in countries like Russia, people try to export with all subsidies and help with the low rate, the low currency ruble. They wanted to export before they support their own countries. And this is something where I think the governments are forced to do something. The governments should help, including banks. We should get away from these horrendous interest rates and stimulate the markets. What's more important? People have to get jobs, people have, let's say, to get income, and this could be a very good stimulus for those so-called brick markets.
And one final question on the price of oil. You are closely correlated with that. Where do you see price of oil headed? Because yesterday the International Energy Agency said it will be $10 and lower. The world is drowning in oil. Where would you stand in oil in 2016?
I think it will not go very much deeper. I think market will stabilize, because at the time being you see all the big oil companies on a global basis are suffering, all the budgets of states getting really flattering, and in my mind the oil price has a value. At the time being, I think there are a lot of speculations, and if you listen and if you see all those speculations which were telling us the dollar is here, the markets will develop there, we're wrong. I hope it's wrong, and I think a price on oil around $40-50 would be good for the industry. A stable price would be good for the calculation, and I think around this $40-50 in the next years the oil price will be.
Thank you so much.
With pleasure.
That's all the time we have for on this particular coverage of Davos, but NDTV continues to get you live coverage, including a special NDTV panel, power-packed with the Finance Minister Arun Jaitley, as well as one of the sharpest minds in business, the guy who predicted the 2008 crisis, Nair Rubini. All that and more throughout NDTV. Keep watching, and thanks for watching.